Good evening. As you may have noticed, it's Christmas time. And as such, I decided to give myself a little bit of a break due to it being the busiest time of the year for myself. Santa Claus. As such, I gathered a couple of friends to talk about Shining Force 2 and how we feel about the people, the characters involved. So please, enjoy this tier list that we have made for you, and have a Merry Christmas. Woodhouse204 again, and it's Christmas time, so I figured we'd be doing something a little bit different today, something that doesn't require quite as much editing and gives me a week off. So we are going to do something that comes with no drawbacks whatsoever in the comment section, something that goes without heat, everyone can agree on. We're going to make a tier list of Shining Force 2.
I mean, the thing is, though, is when we make this tier list, like, it's going to be 100% facts.
Objective tier list.
Yeah.
So
there's no point of dispute at all.
So
well, and really, I made Shining. I'm the creator of Shining Force War of the Gods, so you know it's objective. I mean,
Yeah.
I made the greatest Shining Force mod, Shining Force 2 mod ever. Two of them actually, which means I know everything there is to know about the game, and it'll be 100% right.
So as you can tell from my introduction getting immediately burst into, my guests on today are my usual co-host of Gareth, and and a special guest, the creator of the two best Shining Force 2 mods on the internet, Alex Harmon, also known as Dark Claw. Good evening, or good afternoon to you. How are you doing?
I am doing very, very well. I'm very excited to do this. I've been thinking about it all day.
Good. All right. Well, so shall we get into it, gentlemen?
Yes.
Sure thing. How are you wanting to progress with this? Are we wanting to do this as we meet the characters in the base game, or are we wanting to do this class by class?
Well, so I was thinking we can start just by how they appear on the screen right now, which is in alphabetical order.
Okay.
But I have come up with some criteria as to how we're going to judge these, so I have a little bit of a cheat sheet down here for myself. So the criteria I have here are how good they are to begin with, how they scale, how good or bad they can be with certain classes, and finally, design, brackets, how cool they look and how their designs have, how they look in today's sort of like climate of graphic design. How they've aged.
Like a fine vintage.
If you guys can think of anything else that we think we should take a look at, I think now's the time to...
I might tack on, like, for certain characters, some of them are, like, okay, but then if you give them a running ring, they're great. Or some of them start off even bad, but if you give them, like, the running pimento or the quick chicken or whatever, then they become much more usable. So that might be something we want to consider, that they're not great, but if you give them one item, they're usable.
Excellent.
Just remember, kids, drugs are bad. Only cheaters use drugs.
That's right. All right, so let's start, without further ado, on Bowie. How do we feel about the main character of this fine video game?
I'll start. Bowie starts off, he's your first character, and you have to use him no matter what. But I would, being objective, assuming that you're playing a mod where you didn't have to use Bowie, he would still be very usable. He starts out with decent enough stats for the beginning of the game and progresses well with defense and HP throughout, with very good attack. He gets 3 exclusive swords, the Achilles Sword, Levanter, and the Force Sword. The Levanter and the Force Sword are fantastic in-game weapons. The Levanter's kind of pointless because you get the Force Sword shortly after.
Yeah. He has his own spells as well, so I mean, that also is extra utility that he can use.
The only one who can use Aggress, and one of the only usable Bolt users, because I think Tyron and Chaz both learn Bolt as well, but Chaz is the only usable Bolt user, and you don't really and you don't get him till the end of the game, because I don't think Tyron gets Bolt 4 until like level 60 or something. Or level 40, I'm sorry, level 40 promoted. And then Bowie, He gets it at... Checking real quick. He gets level 31 promoted. So if you're even power leveling a little bit, there's a good chance he gets it. And Bolt 4 is one of the best elemental spells in the game.
Yeah, definitely.
If not the best, so...
Yeah.
So I would put him a solid A tier, personally. Not S, because he does have flaws, because I would say number one flaw, if he dies, you lose the battle.
Yep.
Every time.
I don't know if we mentioned this earlier. I should mention that this is the base game that we're talking about. There's no mods involved in today's tier list.
No mods.
No, this is standard vanilla Shining Force 2 that we're judging here today. Because obviously, any mod that we add to this changes pretty much everything. So
that's true.
No, I would put him in a solid A tier. Again, I will clarify that if you didn't have to use him, I still think he'd be very much worth using.
Yeah.
Drawback being you do have to use him, and if he dies, game over. And that's his only real drawback. His agility's not great. His movement is okay. And even his attack, there are characters who have higher attack. In some ways, I'd argue he's kind of overshadowed by Peter.
Yes.
Because the game clearly wants you to use Peter. He's a story character. He's in every cutscene, and he's extremely good. We'll talk about more about that later. So, in some ways, it's almost overshadowed by him, but he's still very usable and very good in his own right. So, solid A tier. Nothing really bad about him, even if there's something absolutely mind-blowingly extraordinary about him.
Gareth?
I mean, I think the only weakness that Alex has pointed out is because he's the game's avatar, is he's the game over screen if he dies. So using like Alex's comment, if I was to make a Shining Force mod and Bowie was a recruitable character, he'd lose his game over clause and maybe someone else would be the main character. Because otherwise then the game is impossible to lose, and then easy mode mod confirmed.
By the way, Alex, whilst we have you here, is it actually possible to make Bowie a recruitable character then? How easy is it to do that?
I'm not sure about recruitable. I would say recruitable in the sense that you could take his stats, like copy it over to another character and have them, and change the portrait, all that to make it that way. But I do know there are mods where there's a mod on Shining Force Central where you can play with any of the 12 characters you want. You start out with all 30 characters. You pick 12 of them. You can play through the game that way. Yeah. And Bowie is not a required character. You could play through with 12 other characters other than Bowie. And the only way you lose the battle if all your characters die, not if you're one main character.
Right. Okay. All right. Cool. So, Gareth, sorry, back to you.
That's okay. I mean, plot armor, narrative. Because although Peter's like, as Alex points out, like they really push Peter, and the fact like it's not just about you. There's other peoples, there's other religions, there's other races. He's like definitely A tier. He probably is one of the few characters that I can think of that maybe push for an S tier. Just because plot armor.
The fact that he never misses out on an opportunity to level up.
Yeah. I mean, there's times when you can play the game, and if you're very defensive, like, you protect the tower, you can make the rest of your team better because you're not leveling up Bowie. Yeah. But then even if you use Bowie as just someone to sweep up with like the last hit to level up, he always seems to level up very well. I agree with Alex that the agility problem is probably why you, like a lot of people, you will stat dump him for like the quick chicken and the other movement items.
The mentality I had on that is that you're always going to have him in your team, so it didn't seem like a wasted item.
Yeah.
So, all right.
Agreed.
I think we're in agreement here. We're going to put Bowie into A. Anything else to add, gents, before we move on?
I see that Alex is consulting the list.
Yeah.
Like notes.
Yeah, you can't quite see it because I've made our portraits quite small in this video. But Alex has an extensive list of cheats
all the characters and
stats.
Where I think go.
Yeah.
I think this is the only tier list where we can actually comment that someone's got cheat codes at the ready.
Yeah. Yeah, the Konami code on standby there for Alex in the background. So, all right, moving on to Chaz, which is next for us, who is a character I will admit I barely ever used when I'm playing through this game.
Infrequently.
Not worth using anyway, so.
No.
Yeah. I mean, this is one of the criteria that we mentioned before we recorded is this is like the direct gameplay. So when you probably first play Shining Force, you're playing it from point A to B, and you're trying to get there as quickly as possible, not power grinding or anything.
Yeah.
You just get Chaz too late. He might have a cool piano mini story, but you only might use him is if you're sort of doing like you're self-imposing like an Iron Man no revive or something like that.
Yeah, let's just say on your first playthrough of this game, you're not going to pick him. I mean,
why not? Chaz, if you have not leveled up and made like Kazan or Tyron or one of them really well, and you feel like you want to mage at the end of the game, you might grab Chaz. Because I'll say this, Chaz isn't really that bad. Like, there's nothing bad about him, per se, in terms of, he learns freeze at level 26 promoted. His stats are okay. I think, I would argue later on we'll get to this, but Talia is probably worse than Chaz in terms of stats. But there's nothing that stands out about him. I mean, He learns Bullet 4 at level 33, but 2 levels after Bowie. And he could get him at the end of the game. So even, you have 5 battles left by the time you get him. So it's not, and he comes to level 19, you got to level up 7 levels just to get a level 4 spell. You're not doing a lot of damage with Freeze 3 when you get him anyway. So I would put him at level, what do I put him
I mean, let's be honest. Chaz has 2 things going on for him. 1, piano mini story. 2, dapper mustache.
Yeah, I was just going to say that stash is killer.
And I suppose if I'm being super generous, 3, his Howl's son.
Well, he has a good design, I'll say that. And I think I do like actually fits in with the story because it really circles back to he's connected with this character at the very beginning of the game. It shows you that what happened on the island affected places other than Golf and Grand Seal. It sent these people into hiding. So I would say that's interesting. But after that, character, like gameplay-wise, like he's and also Shining Force 2 isn't that hard a game anyway, so like he's usable. You could certainly beat the game with him and do fine, but he's not great. So I put him at B. I put him in the B tier.
B? I think you're being a little bit generous there, actually.
I thought this would have been like a C, just because.
I'll fight for a B a little bit, just because.
It's the stash, isn't it?
If you didn't choose Tyron and you want someone on your team who can cast freeze, he's your only choice.
I suppose, but we're not playing your mod here. Like, there are no elemental weaknesses going on, so.
Well, that's not. They exist in the base game.
Do they?
Yep.
So I'm just going to log off right now. You two can carry on.
No,
I'm obviously the noob here. Sorry about that.
I'll fight for a B a little bit, just in that he is good. He's not great at anything, but he's good, and he is. And that would normally put him at kind of maybe a C tier, but he's also interesting. He has an interesting backstory, and that bumps him up to a B.
I mean, there's a couple of characters that we'll get to, and it reminds me of, in fact, it's actually the other way around. Characters from Fire Emblem Path of Radiance remind me of certain characters in this game, because you kind of get them later on. There are a couple of, is it Luciana, the queen? There are a couple of, like, her nobles, and one of them's a mage, one of them's a knight, one of them's a sword fighter, and the other one, I think, is a knight, a general class. And the problem with all 4 of these characters is they're not bad characters, you just get them too late.
Yep. And Chaz is a bad character, but you get him too late, too.
But him and Bastion have the same mustache, basically.
But I'll still put him at a B because he has an interesting story. And if we're taking like how they look and how they've aged, his characters, like his portrait looks good. He has an interesting portrait. He is probably, other than, he's a traditional wizard character. I put him at a B. He ties back into the actual story.
I just wanted to bring that back on the portrait, by the way. After seeing all the character portraits stuck together like this, you can actually tell like which characters were designed later in terms of portrait, because he's next to Chester, who looks a lot simpler in his design on the portrait. The same with Sarah and Bowie. Like the later on characters look a lot better designed in terms of just their portraits.
I wouldn't necessarily make that as the argument. I think one of the reasons for the simplicity of the early characters is they're all meant to be young, like high school style students, whereas Chaz is an adult. Or you know what I mean? He's definitely like a young adult kind of character.
I mean that porno stash brings it all, really, doesn't it? So
compare Chaz to someone like Fragia. Look how ugly Fragia's sprite is. Nobody wants him on their team because of how he looks. He might be on their team, but he's ugly as sin. Chaz is a character, and it seems bad.
Frasier is literally probably designed after Kelsey Grammer, who was Frasier.
Yeah. All right, I lost any right to say anything when I said elementals aren't in this game, so. Whew, boy. Moving on swiftly. To
be fair, until I made this mod, I didn't know they were in there either.
Excellent. Thank you for saving me like that.
I remember playing Shining Force 1 and just randomly using a free spell on something that had like a fire, like a hellhoundy kind of thing, and it did seem to do a lot more damage, and I went, fire doesn't like ice, and ice doesn't like fire, in my child brain.
Yeah.
And then 2 years later, 4 years later, Pokemon was released.
Alright guys, next is Chester. The very first character to join with Sarah, the Centaur. He's the middle of the road for me. There's nothing special about him. You get him first and you think he's great. He starts out pretty strong. He has good movement. As long as you're in like normal terrain.
Yeah.
How do we feel?
I agree wholeheartedly. Chester, he's okay. He's good at the beginning, and I would say if you kept him all the way to the end, he's very like middle of the road. He isn't a drag on your team, but
dependable.
He's not great. I would say, though, I will argue that if you promote him to a Pegasus Knight due to a glitch, he loses 5 points in defense.
Huh.
Not a glitch, a programmer oversight is probably more accurate.
Yeah.
So whenever you promote a character to Pegasus Knight, they gain 5 points in defense and lose 5 points in agility. Except for Chester, if you promote him to Pegasus Knight, he loses 5 points in defense and 5 points in agility.
Great.
I'm kind of grateful I don't think I ever promoted Chester to Pegasus Knight for some reason.
Just so we're clear, in the vanilla game, it's not, in my opinion, it's not worth promoting virtually any character to Pegasus Knight.
Later on, there's too many archers and stuff.
Well, and you have to keep them unpromoted for a while. Like they're holding the power spear there because all your other characters will be promoted by the time you get to Pelican. And that's where you get the Pegasus wing. So I would put Chester at a C tier because there's nothing remarkable about him. After he joins you, he has no plot significance of any kind.
He really doesn't. He's basically just along for the ride, isn't he?
Well,
Unless you're riding him, I guess.
Yeah. That's kind of why in the mod, like, I would mention, like, oh, he's from Pelican, and, like, he's here on, like, exchange rooms. So, like, okay, it's kind of interesting. Connect something later on in the game. I didn't, whatever.
Yeah. Whatever.
Something more interesting than just like, oh, he's the only centaur in town, and like, whatever.
Yeah.
One horsey boy.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's.
I've got no argument to that. Like, I probably have used it in multiple playthroughs. I've probably had Chester and used him all the way through to the end, just because like he's just reliable, and you know what you're going to get out of him. And to be honest, like in hindsight, I can think of maybe a couple of exceptions. Some of the centaur classes don't really like scale very well later on in the game compared to other units.
None of the centaurs are great, in my opinion.
Yeah. No.
If you want my personal
I think the reason I kept Chester in is, and we'll probably get to this, as I've made comments on two characters before multiple times, just because I was young and I thought that they looked cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good enough reason for any.
I mean, from my brief experience with like Shining Force 1, the character designs for the centaurs in this game are so much better than in the first game. They just look terrible from the first game. Not every character. I'm not gonna paint a broad brush on that. But just the centaurs in the first game looked terrible.
I think overall the art is a lot better in Shining Force 2.
Yeah.
Shining Force 1 has some good art.
Yeah, definitely. It's a different.
There's a lot of rough art too.
Yeah, it's got a different flavor to it. It's got like a darker flavor to it.
It's a darker, rougher flavor overall. And again, some good art. Like I think Blue is a great character design, better than some of the Shining Force 2, but Centaurs, no.
Yeah. All right.
I mean, there's some very interesting art directions in Shining Force 1, like Yogurt, or Domingo, or Tau. Tau's kind of like an interesting looking elf. She looks more like something from a Dark Crystal.
Yeah, actually, yeah. Yeah. All right, well, Chester.
C for Chester.
C for Chester, unfortunately. Claude is next. How do we feel about Claude?
I have a lot of opinions about Claude.
Please.
If you want to start on this one. So I think Claude's actually a great character who's totally unusable.
Yeah.
I think Claude is actually, if you give him the running ring, and if you save a quick chicken for him, he's a fantastic character. He'll be a good addition to your team.
He just smashes.
If you don't give him those things, he's useless.
He's a piece of mud.
Yeah, he has great attack and defense and has significantly more HP than Kiwi does. But outside of that, he has nothing going for him. There's nothing notable about him story-wise. You literally find him middle of nowhere, give him his arm, and boom, he's part of your team now.
I mean, that's not, it's like here's a statue with a missing arm. And
here you go.
I never knew I was part Potter, part surgeon.
Yeah, so the only notable thing I can think of is that if you put in the code to do auto battle, it means all your characters play automatically. He can attack ranged. He can attack one space away extra.
Oh. Does he throw bits of himself at people?
He launches his arm, he rocket punch the enemy. The thought process behind that is that originally the programmers wanted him to have a ranged attack, and it never got fully implemented for us to use, but it's still in the code for the auto battle.
Yeah.
So the AI can do it, but we can't.
Oh, that's cool. Okay.
That's a little bit like in Fire Emblem 6 and 7 for the Game Boy Advance. They had the female rogue class, but there's no female rogues. So if you do an emulator crack and you go through the code like Alex has done with Shining Force many a times before, you can actually see all the stuff. And someone tried playing the game and they changed one of the characters to being a female rogue, and you can only get to a certain battle point and it crashes the game.
Oh, nice.
Claude, I did do the quick ring thing with him, and he's the thing. You give him a quick ring and it's clobbering time, but 99.9% of the time he's just a big ball of mud that sits there.
Yeah, I mean, I must admit, in my playthroughs, I've never really... I used him once or twice, realised that I have better people in my squad already, and I just swapped him out.
He's as much use stuck in that rift than he is actually being a member of your team.
Oh, wow. Think of Claude and his feelings, come on.
He's a golem made out of mud, and if we're going by the Jewish tradition of how a golem's made, he's fired mud with a piece of paper in it, and he has no emotions.
No, so... in my fan fiction, it's Sarah and Bowie over a potter's wheel, like in Ghost, making Claude one evening, okay?
So, just to put this in perspective...
So, how did they put him in that tunnel that they'd never been in before, and he lost an arm?
He got put in the trash by mistake, and the trash people put him there, okay? That's where all the trash goes in this world.
So, FYI, I have removed Claude from both of my mods, and no one has ever complained about it one time.
Yeah, one of them's Olenda from Final Fantasy Tactics, is it? I'm trying to remember who it was.
It was Orlando, yeah, it was Orlando. I have a brand new character, not Orlando, in my War of the Gods one, who actually, I gave her a little story, too, that I threw in there, so it fits in a little bit. That's why you got to talk to everybody. It comes on way later in the game, though. But
okay. Yeah, we'll get there. Don't worry. Just give us time.
I know. I'm not giving you any spoilers. Right,
40 to 50 hours later, we'll be there.
Yeah, like 3 or 4 months. So, guys, how do we feel the tier list
C.
calling
D
for
tier.
Claude? D.
D. No, I'll give him C. C tier, sorry.
I think
Is that C tier as long as you're giving him the ring?
Yeah, because if you give him the ring, he becomes B or A tier even. B tier. He becomes B tier maybe. But C tier, I'll give him C tier.
Okay.
All right. So
I think that... Sorry.
No, go on, Gareth.
I was going to say, I can imagine one of two characters maybe need their own special tier list, potentially amending onto this, but we'll get to them.
Yeah.
And one of them is
Elric?
here.
Elric's D tier.
Yeah, Elric's poor.
Easy. I'm not making any argument in his defense.
Okay, well, a little spoiler for people who watch the War of the Gods videos. If you haven't seen those, what are you doing? We just got Janet in our game, and you changed the sprite for her, because the original sprite for the base level elf archers is awful. It's so bad. And you changed it into something that is so much better. It's actually really nice. I actually really like it a lot.
I pulled it from Shining Force CD, so I'm taking no credit. Pulled it from there.
Yeah. It's so nice.
It's nice to look at an elf that's not like 80% hat.
Yeah, it looks like they look like they work in a florist or something like that.
The only thing I'll give Elric is that I actually think promoting to sniper, I actually think the sprite for the sniper is actually pretty good. I actually like it. I think it's a good looking sprite. Usability wise, I was looking at it this morning. There are pre-promoted, like I think Bowie, before getting promoted, if you level him to 30, has higher attack than Elric promoted to level 30.
Wow.
Yeah.
Like, just to put that in perspective of how low his stats are.
So I have some thoughts on that. I'm wondering if
he's so weak, he's drowning in a paddling pond.
That's true. I'm wondering if the designers of the game put like a lot of emphasis on the fact that he's a ranged character, and maybe thought that because of that they needed to, tone down his attack, but they overtoned it.
I think you might be right, because really the only archer I would argue is like really good is May. I think Janet and even May has some problems, but May and Elric and Janet are just bad.
Yeah.
Gareth, I know, has some feelings on May as well, so we will enjoy that argument when we get to it. But for now, how do we feel about Elric as a tank?
As a tank?
He's better as a brass gunner, but he's still bad.
Yeah.
Hold up.
I think realistically, when you go the brass gunner class, there's only one character who's like designed to really be the brass gunner. Even though they make it so easy to make virtually every archer a brass gunner in the game.
Yeah.
Because there's so many tankards lying around for you to make the upgrade.
Good.
But like, I think Elric, I only use him because you get him at a point where you still don't have 12 characters.
Yep.
Yeah, when you get him, he's your 13th character.
Is he the 13th character?
Yeah, you get Rick.
Wow.
Rick is your 12th character. You get Elric as the 13th.
Oh wow, that's a tough choice between two hard rocks.
I would argue Rick's actually Rick's pretty good. He's better than Elric by a large.
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, it's a choice of the Ricks, though, isn't it? Elric or Rick.
I'll say this. I usually don't switch in Elric when I get him.
No.
But if I do, I switch him out for Luke. Like I take Luke out.
I can see why you would do that.
Because you don't have that, you only have 4 archers in the game, and at that point you only have 1.
Yeah.
But by the time you get him, you have like 1 billion frontline fighters.
Yeah, but then you've still got Rick and Chester, who have got the capability of doing range attack.
Yeah, they can do shorter range attacks. By the way, quick note, I just looked at it. So Bowie is a swordman. If you level him to level 30, he has 40 attack base without sword or anything equipped. Elric at level 30 as a brass gunner also has 40 attack.
Is that including the weapon?
I
That's
think
not including the weapon.
I think that's just playing into my opinion that maybe the designers put a lot of emphasis on him being ranged.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably.
All right. So where do we think,
D.
gents? D.
D.
I could see a place for him there. What do you think, Gareth?
He's just going on the D. That's what
All
I
right.
think of him.
Sorry, Elric. You're a D. Next is Eric.
There's a lot of very similar names.
I know
there?
this confused me at
Elric,
first when I was
Rick.
Rick. Yeah, I know.
They need a girl called Elle so that you can have her next to Rick.
Make it really confusing. I think it's also like not poor, but translators at the time just it not being a priority.
Yeah.
Like, okay, let me get these names out of the way and just throw them in there. Because actually, if you play Shining Force CD, they have characters named Claude and Slade and stuff like that too. They don't.
Yeah.
It'll be like Slade's a priest and Claude's a birdman, but they
Yeah.
just like reuse the names.
Yeah,
So-
but the Claude and Birdman thing is a poor pun, though, isn't it?
Maybe I'm not sure.
No, it's deliberately
For
created.
Claw,
Yeah,
Wow.
because
We're gonna say what else?
So the characters' names stay the same then from the translation.
they I don't know. They say I
No.
don't think they say the same from the translation from Japanese. I believe that the translators just reuse names. That
Really?
like, I think they just like had a pool. Like I mean, some of them are different a lot, but I think they reuse a lot of them.
Well, for example, Jaro was originally called Falconer in the Japanese version.
That's
if you
such a
take
cool
it from
name.
the
Yeah, it is.
Romanji, and it's like Luke in Shining Force 1 and the Luke in Shining Force CD are actually called Lug.
Yep.
That's less cool. Okay.
And then I think Peter is called like Ash or something. I
Yeah.
want to say. And
That makes a lot of sense.
Oh yeah, and then I'm pretty sure there are a couple Randolphs in the games too, and a couple Gaians as well. They reuse some names,
Okay.
but anyway, Eric is a C tier character for me.
So you think he's better than Elric?
I think so. Hear me out. Eric is the worst choice from Creed's Mansion by a large margin. He is the worst choice. There is no point in getting him
Yeah.
at all.
No.
Well, at that point, you already have Chester and Rick.
You already have two knights. All three of the other characters are better. The only thing I will give Eric is that if you examine him, like I mean, if you're playing through a playthrough where you want to use all the knights, and if you look at his stats, they are pretty good. He has some good stats. He's not necessarily a bad character. I will knock him. He has the highest attack of all the knights.
Yeah.
The only thing I will knock is that he's
Is it the one with like the worst agility? Is it the worst agility or defense? Because I remember seeing one of his charts and his attacks like through the roof, and then one of them's like sort of a little bit flat with some upwards, and the other one may as well just be flat or just go down.
No, so for instance, not that this is necessarily fair, but comparing some like Higgins, he is better in every stat than Higgins is. But let me check somebody else. I think you might be getting confused with Rick, because Rick has fairly low attack, but the highest, like 20 points higher defense than the next highest knight. Whereas Eric has the highest attack, not by a whole lot. Like Jaro's right behind him, but he has the highest attack and fairly decent defense, and I think the highest HP of any of the knights. The only thing I will say with Eric is that his growth rate is late, so he's not getting these levels until sometimes like, after level 15 it starts to really pick up.
Yeah.
That said, if you do choose to use him, he's pretty good. I would say he's better. I would say he's better than Higgins, not better than Chester, but about as good as Chester is. So I put him at C tier.
So if we were to do this, would you put him before or after Chester in the C list? Just
I
after?
I would put Chester still slightly above, because you'll use Chester. You won't really use Eric. But I have a hard time putting him at D tier just because stat-wise, like, he's not terrible. You're just not necessarily going to pick him.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
If y'all want to disagree with me though, I'm ready.
I just feel like if we're going from the base level, like just a normal person's playthrough of the game, and you're using one side of your brain or maybe just 10% of it, you're never picking him because there's no reason to. So
see, but your first playthrough, maybe you like Chester, maybe you like Rick, and you're not thinking about, you don't know anything about Karna or Tyron or Randolph, but you see Eric, you're like, man, I love these knight characters, let me grab him. Yeah. And he would do a good job, purpley service.
I mean, let's be honest, when we played the game, you probably skewed stuff over to the interactions with this character were interesting / cool, I like the design of this character, or it's like, you might be that kind of guy who's like, I just really like centaurs.
Yeah.
To be fair, like from my first playthrough, I would be seeing Gareth at school and going. So I came to the part of the game where you can choose which character you want. Who should I pick? And then you would say.
I think first time I picked Randolph, and then the second time around I got Karna because I basically wanted to see if I could do all monks towards the end of the game.
Yeah. I think that's the similar sort
First
of way.
First time for me was Tyron, because Kazan was my favorite character when I was a kid. So, well, Geralt was really my favorite character, but Kazan
there we go.
Was my favorite. No, but I picked Tyron my first time, and he was great, and he's better than Eric. But if you are somebody who likes knights and don't know anything, then Eric is good, and he'll be a perfectly he'll hold on to you and not disappoint you. Whereas Elric, if you really like archers, Elric's going to disappoint you.
Definitely.
Yeah. Or every day.
Every day.
So
Elric's the kind of guy. Are we
agreed on a C tier for Eric, or are we?
Yeah. No, I think I've been swayed.
Elric is the kind of guy who'd invite you out to lunch but expect you to pay.
You'll be very disappointed by Elric.
Yes, definitely. All right then, fellas. Toss my salad and scramble my eggs. It's Frasier time.
All right. I'm going to let someone else start with Frasier and get their thoughts on him.
Okay, I will start with Frasier. I think character-wise is interesting because of what he does and the fact that it tries to give the game some a combination of a motive and someone willing to make the hard decisions, and more, like he takes them on himself. Like, he knows he's done a terrible thing. I've done a terrible thing to try and help
for the right reason.
Yeah.
As far as story reasons go, like for one of the other characters that you get later on in the game, his story is probably one of the strongest, I feel.
Yeah, I think he's very compelling in that regard.
Yeah.
I think like a little bit like Chaz is kind of compelling because him and Frasier almost are like a yin and yang because they're doing the same thing but in different ways.
Yeah.
As a character, first playthrough, I think I already had Sarah, and my brain state was one healer with a decent heal spell is enough as long as I play smart. I can't remember Frasier's spell list with off the top of my head. I think is he fairly standard?
Heal, detox, attack, aura.
Yeah.
And he learns. Sorry, I'll get into it in a second.
He gets aura fairly early on for his position in the game, though, from what I kind of remember.
Yep.
I think maybe a couple of times when when you lose a fight and you go, actually, I might need a second healer character in, I may have popped him in and out. But he wasn't a first choice. He wasn't awful. I don't remember a time when I was like, you know what, he's really slowing me down in the whole thing. Like, because I kind of moved in the Phalanx 1 and a space and then 2 kind of thing formation. But he has some interesting character stuff. I don't remember his level, like at any point being like, wow, these levels and upgrades are crazy and completely unreal.
To be fair, with any of the healers, you don't really pay attention to that, do you? Not particularly. You're there for the utility that they provide, not for their ability to like hit things. The way I feel about him is, I don't think this would shock anybody who's watched any of the stuff that I've played, is that I like to turtle, and having the ability to stay safe and move methodically through the game, I will take that person on. So I actually used Frasier all the way through my playthrough, because that aura spell that he gets is good. Like it's a good mass heal when you have to deal with the AoE. When you're moving methodically, you get hit by AoE spells. So having a counter to that was always good for me. So I quite like him as a character actually. Like the character design wise, like he's an old man. His hair is like Gareth if he grew it out. Character design wise, he's kind of an old man that doesn't get many breaks, but I actually quite like the character. I don't have a problem with him at all. I think I would put him quite high.
He's definitely got he's got more plot line than a lot of characters in the game as well.
Definitely, and that means a lot to me. So I can't see him being A tier, but I can easily see him being B tier. I don't know.
No argument on that one. Yeah. I would put him. I'd put Saw B. To get in here, the only thing because the project I have a solid. Whenever I play the vanilla Shining Force 2, there are 11 characters I use every time, and then like a rotating 12th that like it goes between like Fraja or Jaro or Lemon, or just depending on that playthrough that I have. A couple other. Fraja is usually the one who ends up being my 12th character though, and the only thing I will knock him on gameplay wise, which is obviously my main focus looking at stats and everything, is he's a little difficult to level up. I mean, when you get him, he has Heal 2 and Detox 2, which are really poor for where you are in the game. Yeah. But one level he learns Aura. I think he doesn't, like, he never really gets like the heal spells until like way later on, but he gets Aura really quickly. Yeah. The only thing with Fraja, and this problem with all the other priest characters, is he's totally overshadowed by Karna if you have her. But if you didn't pick Karna, he's gonna be your fantastic healer. He's gonna be the one you go to because he's much better. Because Sarah doesn't learn Aura, so you're really gonna need him, and he learns Aura earlier than any other character. The only other character is Aura and Karna, but he learns Aura 8 levels earlier than Karna does. So I would put him high B. Like he's he's almost A. The only thing I would knock him on is he's a little hard to level, given where he comes at. He comes near the end of the game, but the last chunk of it, last quarter, I would say.
You definitely get more use out of him out of Chaz.
Yeah. Oh, certainly. He's much better than Chaz in that regard. And he's ugly. He's an ugly character. He's ugly. He's ugly as sin. Yeah, he's an interesting story, but ugly, so that didn't age well. So yeah, I would put him at a high B. Almost A, but B.
Gareth?
I would settle with B. Because of the way I played, I think I use more items. I would have gone B, and if anyone had said C, I could have been argued to a C depending on your playthrough, but I'd stick with a B.
Okay.
I have a very aggressive playstyle when I play, so Fraja's great for patching up my guys after I see them in slaughter.
See, my thought towards using items is that they're there for when you run out of MP. So
yeah.
All right, I think we're in agreement. A B there for Fraser. Next up, we have the Wolfman.
Can we add another S tier on top of this one? Put him double S.
S plus.
Yeah. No, I love Geralt. When I was in kindergarten and playing this game, I went out on Halloween as Geralt. People thought I was a werewolf, but no, I'm Geralt.
Which version? Nerdy hat Geralt? Or
no, werewolf. I always thought it was so cool that he became a werewolf. Yeah. But he... No, I love him. He has the second highest base attack in the game. Granted, he's unarmed, so his base attack's higher than a lot of other characters, but he's the second highest except for Peter. I always, on every playthrough I play, I give him a running pimento, so he has 7 move instead of 5 move, which makes him even deadlier, which granted, I understand that, we're judging them based on who they are, but I'm saying with one small boost, once you give him the running pimento, he is an S character in my opinion. Go ahead.
I'm not even going to argue, because as John knows, and as I pointed out during the Shining Tactics thing, whenever I play Shining Force 1 and Shining Force 2, there's 2 characters always guaranteed to be in any of my teams. Even Like, I will fight anyone who does not like Xylo and does not like Geralt.
Oh,
Not
yeah.
like, oh, I will argue with you. I will meet you in the car park of your choice and fight you.
Another utility he and Peter and a lot of those other characters have is that, depending on how you play, they're really useful as healers too, because you can give them 4 healing drops and let them loose throughout the battle, and they can pick themselves up, they can patch other characters up, and because you're usually not going to use all 4 in a battle, but it's still there being able to double as that or fill in that role that you don't get with the character you have to have a weapon on and a ring on and carrying something else on them.
Yeah.
So I think Geralt's solid A tier. Solid A tier.
By the way, Gareth, you said Xylo before? Did you mean Zinc?
No.
Xylo from Shining Force 1.
Oh, right. Sorry, I misunderstood.
No, you're good.
That's fine. Xylo also had the awesome attack where he just basically like raises his claw and all like these
comes down, crashes into him.
And all these like werewolf fireballs just like smack them to death. It's like great. But yeah, Geralt, I love the character design. I love the fact that he's just kind of like walking around. He's like, yeah, I'll have a big fight with you. Sure. Yeah, you guys are punching some stuff. I'll punch some stuff.
Yeah, I would say from a story perspective, he doesn't really get the good end of the end of the stick there, does he? He's kind of like just there, isn't he? Unfortunately.
Yeah, but he's also like, his character. I kind of liked his, like, as I jokingly call it, like nerdy Geralt. For some reason, I kind of like that character design because it was different to Xylo when you meet him. I think it was like, I remember us being like, I was 11, okay, internet. I remember being like super hyped when he promotes. Yeah. And like the change of his appearance was amazing. Him and Peter's promote changes are both great.
Basically, young kids. Gareth was feeling the way you do when you get a new Pokemon and they evolve.
I was probably thinking more like, when you go from being like a primary school kid into being like a senior school kid. There's not really a big difference, but you feel cooler because you've made that step up.
Yeah. I don't really have much else to say. I like Geralt. Back in my younger days when I was first playing this game, I had a smooth brain, so I didn't really think to put any of the movement items on him. So he did have that going against him.
Even without that, I still think he's great.
Yeah. I mean, as Alex put it, give him a movement ring, speed ring, and then he's a 3-item healer, and he punches like an absolute truck.
Oh yeah, don't get me wrong, he was never out of the team for me. So, what do you think, guys? Is this going to be? Is this S tier?
A. I think A.
Definitely A.
Ooh, okay, all right.
He's
I'm
not
kind of surprised. I'm kind of surprised
so,
there.
Look, aesthetically, I could easily be persuaded. It's not going to take much. Like, it's like, will you do this for 2 chocolate bars, and I'd be there. But realistically, there's other characters with a little bit more going.
I was going to say, because with this sort of setup, the reason like Claude or Eric are in D tier is because there are characters that are a lot worse than them, and same thing with Geralt. He's a great character, but there are characters that are objectively better.
All right.
So
okay. Next we have Gian. How do we feel about the beardy dwarf there, fellas?
I've been talking a lot.
I just feel complete mediocrity. Like,
yeah, I feel.
What I mean? It's like, you could flash a picture up of me and it'd be like, oh, it's a Shining Force character. Like, my heart rate wouldn't fluctuate, my breathing wouldn't change. He's perfectly serviceable. I think you get him at I can.
He's not bad as is. If you give him the quick ring or the running ring, he's a little
get
bit
him
better.
quite late, don't we?
Yeah, you get him one battle after Frasia or however we're pronouncing it. You get him one battle after that.
Yeah.
And he's he's all right. I mean, I think he's maybe a little bit better than Chester, just because I don't love Chester, but and the axes there are some cool effects with the axes later on in the game.
Yeah,
but he's still not solid C tier for me.
How do you feel he compares to Yahara?
Yaha, I'll go down fighting that Yaha is a B tier character.
Ooh, I don't know how I feel about that. I always felt like Gen was actually better than Yaha, but I mean, statistically, I could be proven very wrong. I mean, I'm not accustomed to being wrong ever.
Here's what I'll say. Yaha, you get him early on in the game, so if you give him stat boosting items, you can kind of shape him the way you want a little bit, and then you can he has 2 different promotions. Guion you get as is, and like out of the box Gladiator, perfectly serviceable.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm gonna give the characters you get early on a little bit of leg up just out of usability. And I'm gonna say Jaha's stats are objectively better than Guyon's.
Are they? Ah, okay. All right, I'm gonna push his character design being better than Yaha's then.
I mean, he's definitely got more beards. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
for me,
I'm not allowed to have a beard due to being married and my wife refusing to let me have one. So I think beard envy might play into my opinion somewhat. So
I mean, until yesterday, my beard wasn't too dissimilar. Guyon, he's okay. That's how like, you know what I mean. He just doesn't evoke anything.
So I just do you want me to compare Guyon's stats to Yaha's stats?
Go on then. Yeah, just shoot me in the head. Come on, just do it. Do it.
So Guyon, to his credit, has 5 extra HP points over Yaha. Yaha has 6 extra attack though.
Okay.
Yaha has 6 extra defense. And Yaha has 2 extra points of agility.
And we're talking at max level here, yeah?
Not max level, level 30 promoted. If you were to promote at level 20 and then promote it, and then level 30 promoted for Yaha, what they would both look like. That's not max, that's level 30 for both of them.
Okay.
Level 30 being where they'd be at, like, end of the game, presumably, roughly.
Alright, is it just objectively better then, I guess? Alright then.
Except for that beard.
That beard, man. Come on. Alright,
he's C.
He's C.
We're here for the tier list, not the aesthetics.
Hey, that plays somewhat into
the
criteria.
We did say that was going to be a point marker, but Guy, we don't need another Gimli here.
Alright. Next up is Higgins. Should we just put him in D tier and just get on? Yeah, let's. Alright. Hang on. Yep, there you go. So, Yaha.
Real quick with Higgins, real quick. Let's not go over him.
Alright.
By the time you get Higgins, he's promoted. His stats are bad. He's late development in all of them. You already have 2 centaurs who are great.
Yep.
Character design, kind of cool, kind of lame. He doesn't really have any story significance at all, really. Kind of is a Pelican Knight, whatever.
Yep.
Nothing remarkable about him, so we can move on. Sorry, nothing a lot.
The only thing I've got to say about Higgins is that he reminds me of your dad.
Okay, so obviously none of you have seen my dad, so there is a somewhat daddish. My dad doesn't have green hair. I just like to add. But otherwise, apart from the ears, it is kind of a lot like my dad. So he's in D tier.
Dad tier.
Yeah, dad tier. All right. Anything else to say before we move on to Yaha?
Nope.
Excellent. Let's move on to Yaha then.
The dwarf who wants to grow up. Yaha.
Well, I think Woodhouse has some thoughts about Yaha, so let's go on with this.
I don't know. I just think he's good for the first half of the game, and then the second half of the game, I actually take him out. Like, I like him as a gladiator because you can use like some of the swords with him, but
you mean a baron?
Sorry, yes, a baron. Sorry, yeah.
Yep.
But I just think he's kind of average. Like he doesn't excel in any particular area, really. I mean, you're the stat master, Alex. Am I completely wrong in this, or?
You're not completely right. So I'll say this. Including Guyan, all the warrior characters, so that's Yahara, Randolph, Lemon, and Guyan, and Yahara, they're all good characters. If you want to use any one of them, including Guyan, you're not going to ruin your game. Like, they're not going to drag your team out. None of them are D tier or anything like that.
Yeah.
I would give Yahara a point over someone like Guyan. Someone like my phone rang.
Don't worry about it. Yeah.
Don't worry.
I would give Yahara a point over Lemon and Guyan just because you get him early on, so he has a lot of utility that way. As a Baron, he's a pretty he gets an extra point in movement, not as much defense, but that's okay. He's a little more versatile. He attacks with swords and axes, which is interesting. That gives him again more utility. And technically speaking, stat wise, his stats are pretty good. So I would put him at a B tier.
Yeah, I've got no idea for that. You use Yahara for so much of the game as well.
Okay.
If you're gonna use a warrior, think of it this way: if you're gonna use a warrior throughout, like end game, like you're gonna take one of them, you're probably not gonna choose Randolph at Creed's, so you're gonna hold on to Yahara, and then Guyan, you don't get till pretty late in the game. Lemon, when you get Lemon, you have a total of 5 battles left. So Yahara's really your guy a majority of the game if you're using a warrior at all.
I see your point. I guess maybe just like my own fatigue of having to use him throughout the whole game and not feeling anything towards him.
Yeah.
Like plays into that somewhat. But alright, if you guys want to put him in B, I'm not too upset about that. So
I think I use Yahara through every run through. Every time.
Yeah.
Me too. Same.
He doesn't upset me. He's still, you know what I mean? He's like the comic relief. There's not much comedy, so he's just the relief. And he does some of the heavy lifting for you in the earlier fights as well.
Yeah.
To spice things up, my first mod I ever made that I never released to the public, I just switched out the 4 Creed characters with the first 4 characters you get. So when you're in a Creed's mansion, you're picking Sarah, Chester, Yahara, and Kazan.
Yeah.
Sorry, Alec. It was interesting for what it was. I always end up picking Kazan.
I mean, essentially that's what they are, isn't it? The Creed characters.
They're counterparts to your first 4.
Yeah.
I quite like that actually. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right then. Yahara is
basically older versions of what you've got.
Yeah.
Better in most cases, but yeah.
Okay. Next up, Janet.
Just stick her at the bottom and we move along.
Yeah, like we don't need to talk. We kind of talked about her a little bit with Elric.
Yeah, we did.
Put her next to a boyfriend. You can even put her in front of a boyfriend because she's slightly better. And then we move along.
No, Janet, stat-wise, is worse than Elric.
Oh my god!
Wow.
Janet is one of the she's easily. If we had an F tier, she'd be F tier. Like
Janet tier.
I feel bad associating Janet with Higgins because Higgins, you could argue, has some utility. Janet does not.
I mean, she doesn't have to be next to a target. I mean, that is the base requirement for an archer, but
That's Higgins. Higgins has a ranged attack.
He does, but
not as far. Okay. But he does have a ranged attack.
Janet is she's your first. Well,
third archer.
Yeah.
Still useless.
Still, yeah. Okay. She's there to be there for Elric, and that's about it, really, isn't it?
They can hold each other and just ask why.
Why? Fair enough. Next is Whiskey in the Jarro.
I got a soft spot for Jarro.
Really?
Not as big as Geralt, but I like Jarro.
I think Jarro as a character, when you get him, is interesting in the fact that he swaps mid-fight.
That's why it's cool.
That is a cool bit, yeah.
Yeah.
He swaps mid-fight. He has a little bit of backstory with, he's a soldier from Gollum, so he's kind of, swept up in things.
Yeah.
His portrait's cool. Honestly, for most players, he's probably the only Pegasus Knight they get.
Yeah.
Especially on the first couple playthroughs, because you're not really finding the Pegasus wing.
No.
Question for you, Alex. How do you feel about when he changes sides, he gets weaker?
I it's it's a balance thing. They got to do it. It wouldn't really fit otherwise.
Because I remember the first time I played that battle, and I was like, "Oh, I'm going to interact with this character and see if something happens," and I got wrecked. And then when he swaps the fight onto my side, I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna kick these guys' ass," and then it's like, "What?
What happened?"
No,
It's like, did they swap his spear for a toothpick? What happened?
His blue pill ran out, and
Jaro, I would argue, I think he's probably a little bit better than Chester or Eric, so I would put him in a B tier just because I don't think he's there. Again, I'd also say only Pegasus Knight you're probably gonna get, only really without finagling some things and bring another unpromoted character along for a while. Probably really the only usable one you're gonna get. So I would give Jaro, I would give him a B tier. I think he's interesting character design. Again, only Pegasus Knight. Nothing wrong with him. So B.
Yeah, he's got like moderately decent stats as well.
Yeah, his stats are pretty
I made a joke about like the someone comes across and deflates his muscles a little bit when he swaps sides, but he's pretty solid.
Out of the Knights, I think he has the second highest attack.
yeah, I was going to say
Third
he always
highest attack.
felt like he hit hard. So
Yeah, he hits pretty hard.
Here's a theoretical question for you.
Go ahead.
Have you ever tried to? So he in the map that he joins you, he changes sides. Have you ever thought about changing him back like halfway through the battle?
No, and I would not know how to do that. I no lie, I had to get somebody to help me out with a lot of like the modding for like the train option you have in the game right now.
Yeah.
Like I had to get someone to help me out with a lot of the ASM stuff.
Yeah.
But
I wouldn't know how to do that.
I feel like that would throw everyone for a loop, though.
Oh, yeah,
that would be a
like-
good idea. Like,
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
yeah, because everyone expects him to just like stay on your side, but if you got into like, moving into your group and then like just go, actually, I'm a spy, and then just change sides again, double agent style.
That would be interesting, but I have no idea how to do it.
Alex is like, for my next mod.
Yeah.
Yes. Also,
But
this
how?
is what I look like whenever you all die in game. Like,
Imagine if though he goes, it's too late in the game. I need a spy earlier. Who would?
turns out it's Sir Astral.
Oh, please make that so. I'd love to have Sir Astral being playable personally, but
There are a
So
couple mods that have done it.
Have they?
I just like the mental image of Sir Astral killing Xeon at the end, and he's the ultimate traitor. And then at the end, he just Gandalf's non-shall pass, and you just got to kill Astral.
The only problem is the mods I've seen where he is that he replaces Janet. Like they'll finagle it some way, so because he hits Sir Astral and Janet kind of at the same time. And then he's just like another wizard like thrown in there. I mean, he's all right, but nothing special.
yeah, okay. So
I wonder
Sorry, Gareth, go on.
I was just going to say in the mods, I wonder if people will just like give him the spells at a silly high level early on just because he's meant to be this
The power
great
fantasy.
wizard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So
I modded a Birdman in one of the ROMs that I had, and it had the character debug in it, so you without having to do any of the stuff for it, you could just go in, and I just made like Luke have like D-Soul and like maximum movement and maximum attack and stuff for funsies. He was still not very usable.
right, so back into it. We had a slight break. Where do we feel? Don't worry about it. Where do we feel Gyro comes on our list?
I'm gonna say B. Just because I don't think he's a good character. There's nothing wrong with him. Again, I'm gonna harp on this. Probably only Pegasus Knight most people are getting if they like that.
Yep.
And cool character design. So
I definitely think that he's a cool character. Like his design is probably one of the better ones in my opinion. I like you say, only one of the only Pegasus Knights you can have, especially on like the first couple of playthroughs. I could see him in B easily.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
all right,
Kana. How do we
So-
feel?
double S. I mean, quintuple S. I mean, she's easily the best character in the game, except for maybe Peter.
She is really good, and the amount of time when I basically learned how good she was, like, I think, as I said before, on my second or third playthrough, and I discovered the monk class, I tried to make all of the healers that can be monks for funsies. Even no matter what I did with Kana, whenever I seemed to get her, when I used that Kana in the thing, I think I just took Sarah out and replaced her with Kana.
Really? Wow, I had both of them, but hey.
I gotta say, whenever I play, I have both of them as Master Monks in the vanilla game. Because I'll take Karna, I'll level her up as a priest throughout until I get to Sheila's Shrine where I get the other Vigor Ball, and then I make her a Master Monk there.
Yeah.
And then I have her, Sheila, and Sarah as Master Monks on my team. And
Boosh.
Karna's still the best. Karna, even as a Vicar, though, she's still an extraordinary character. She will still just play normally, be your best. She has the highest MP of all the priest characters. She gets Aura 4 and Boost and Heal and Detox, I want to say.
Right.
Blast. She doesn't Detox.
Oh,
she
she doesn't get Blast.
My bad.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that I remember is the fact that she actually has utility in between being a healer and having a decent attack spell instead of being.
And if you make her a Master Monk, she can literally do everything.
Yeah.
So S tier. I mean, there are two characters belonging to the S tier, and she's easily one of them.
The other thing I would say that goes against her is I'm not amazingly keen on her character design. The portrait doesn't. I'm not that keen on the way that she looks. She looks a little bit odd to me. I mean, you could say that she stands out. I just feel like
girls.
Sorry?
Well,
you don't like purple hair anime girls? Because that's what she is.
I get that, but I just feel like her character design, like she's sort of like this sort of like moe sort of smile that had the kind of like is a little bit different than most of the other characters.
She's Sarah with confidence.
Actually, if you look at like the original character art, her and Taya are like very obviously like they had very similar designs early on.
Really? Oh, okay.
Yeah. I can see that, but honestly, her gameplay stuff is so strong, you can't not put her at S tier. You know, I'm not going to say she's a perfect character design, but once you pick her from Creeds, you're probably not picking anybody else except for maybe Tyron if you felt like it, or we're doing some sort of weird challenge.
Yeah, like part of the reason the first time I didn't pick her is like as a young guy, I was like, I want burly, strong, fighty men for my fighty game. And then I was like, oh, well, range attacks and all this are so good. And I tried Tywin, and I think I saved it in a point where I could just keep going back and swapping the characters.
Yeah, I think I did the same.
And I just was like, yes, this one.
Yeah, I agree. In all of her different classes, she just is the best, isn't she? So.
Yeah.
Alright, next up is Kazan. Gareth, let's start with you. He is your favourite character, so...
Okay, so storyline, he joins you through a combination of guilt and need. He is the first aggressive magic user that you get, which when you are in the Gallum fight in the castle, or coming out, he's super useful. You can start manipulating the field a lot more into your benefit to get people into blaze. You can level him up efficiently. It starts to bring like a lot of the tactics game concepts together when I think you've got those 5. I think his storyline's good. I think his character design's great. I just enjoyed him all the way through whenever I played. Like, if I'm being honest, he's probably, like, statistically, he's probably, like, low A, high B on those stats. You get him so early on in the game, and you can level him up so efficiently throughout the game, and he's probably going to be, like, your go-to wizard/sorcerer later on in the game. I'm sure Alex can argue against me with the relevant stats that he's got in front of him.
Statmaster.
But like name Did you use Kazan from beginning to end of your
Yes.
first playthrough?
Yes.
Alex, did you use Kazan
Yes.
beginning to? There we go.
The only thing I'd argue, the only problem with Kazan is, again, in a vacuum, looking at it objectively, Tyron is the better wizard and sorcerer. He's better at both over Kazan.
However, are you taking Tywin when you first play the game?
No, when I first played it, I did, and I promoted him to a sorcerer, and Kazan was a wizard, and Kazan wasn't that great because he's not a great wizard. The way I play it now is Kazan is always a sorcerer because he's really good as a sorcerer. Tyron's slightly better, but not much. And I would argue Tyron fits better in the wizard role because of how he develops than a sorcerer. He's kind of wasted as a sorcerer. He can be slightly better.
Gareth, you gonna let him do your boy like that?
We've already discussed that we both think Kazan is the best character in the game.
I do like.
All right, he's not the best character in the game, but he is a character favorite for the two of us.
I would put him. I agree with what Garrett said. I would put him at a low A.
Okay. Yeah, I can't say anything wrong with that. I mean, he's always useful, and I always used him. So
he's got my teenager haircut.
This is true.
So yeah.
All right. Next.
D.
Did you just yell B then?
No, D. D is in Delta. D.
D for disappointment.
Yes. D
oh my god. The amount of wasted time.
Purple.
The amount of wasted time on this character to see if he gets good in his evolved class form. That's time I cannot get back, Sega.
Nope. But that's what Sega did though. As we said, Yogurt, he's less of a troll than Yogurt.
That's not saying much though, is it?
He's probably on par with Domingo from those two games.
I would Domingo. No, that's not fair. Domingo.
Actually, no. Well, Domingo has like spells.
Domingo has cool spells. Kiwi. I can name the redeeming. I can name all the good things about Kiwi and be done in about 20 seconds, or all the bad things about Kiwi and be done in about 2 hours.
I mean, there was a reason that Gareth and I picked Kiwi as our, like, you know, do bad, get tattoo, sort of like, you know, punishment. So yeah,
Kiwi has a high defense early on, which is fun.
Yep.
That's cool. That kind of tapers off towards the end. He has low HP, so he cannot survive any spells that hit him.
Yep.
And I'll say this, he has like an interesting character design. Like, it's interesting. He's a turtle that becomes a monster, which doesn't really make any sense, but whatever, we'll run with it.
I actually think that the upgraded character design is ugly as anything. It's terrible. Like, he's a very cute character before he becomes. It's a monster, right?
Yeah, he becomes a monster, and the idea of him becoming a monster, I think, is cool. But the execution is poor.
Yeah, because he has this like really cool helmet that I really like, and then he ditches the cool helmet and becomes this really ugly monster. Even from a design point of view, like, it's terrible.
So, D tier, D. And if we had an F, he'd be an F right there with Janet.
Oh yeah, definitely. Okay, fan favorite time. Lemon.
Is this your fan favorite, John?
Actually, no, not on. I mean, people seem to like him though. I think his character design and the build up to getting him is super cool. He's like one of the coolest characters in the game.
Talked about throughout, follows your team around on the outsides, and he auto revives, kind of like Peter does.
Yeah.
So I feel like the designers kind of wanted you to use him. You get him near the end, so
it fits the narrative though, doesn't it? Like, Peter's a phoenix, so he resurrects from his ashes, and when you get Lemon, he's a vampire, so he can't die in normal meat.
Yeah. He's a really cool character that's kind of let down by his stats, really.
His stats aren't that much worse than Yaha's. They're a little bit worse, but not that much worse. And your first playthrough, he's the only Baron you're probably going to get.
Yeah.
And actually in the Red Baron, because he technically has his own class called Red Baron, and his stats are he has some slightly better, like double attack more or something like that than a normal Baron.
I think that's mainly to like reference the fact that he was the general for Gallon, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like trying to give him some like fighter's prowess and stuff like that. Like they've definitely tried to put his narrative into his statistics in places, I feel.
So there's nothing, again, for any character where there's nothing wrong with them, they go in B tier. There's nothing extraordinary about him, but there's nothing bad at him, so he's middle of the road B tier. Maybe like higher on the B tier, but not like Fragia level B tier or, something like that. He's better than Chaz, how about that? At the end of the game, if I have a slot open on my team between Chaz and Lemon, it's going to be Lemon.
Yeah.
Okay.
So probably behind Yahara in front of Chaz. Yeah, there we go.
I'm just looking at the list now. Actually, I would probably do that, and then
I'd probably move Claude to the bottom of the C tier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just because he's so conditional to be good.
Fair enough. What about this A tier?
Higgins maybe promotes to the top of the D tier.
Yeah, you've got a point there, actually.
I would put Geralt over Bowie, actually, in the A tier.
Gareth?
Yeah, I can see that because
all right.
He's not got the auto lose clause.
And I'd put both over Kazan, though.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I think we're all set up here. For obviously, we're getting ready to put Luke into the S tier. Because you did mention that there are two characters you want to put into S tier, and obviously Luke is that other character, right?
Well,
no, it's actually Screech. Luke is just a high A. No, Luke's a D character easily.
Oh, he's terrible. Yeah. He comes with such promise. Like
the only cool thing is he can fly. Like I think he's your second flying character.
Yeah.
And he can use a sword, which is like, I mean, it's a cool concept, but they don't execute it well. And he's above Kiwi. I'll give him that.
Yeah.
He reminds me so much of, is it Balbury and Amon from Shining Force 1? And the character for designs are so awesome in the fact that they're these bird creatures. One of them's a statue, I think, at the beginning of the fight, if I remember. I think Balbury is a statue.
Yeah. Because I'm an England's wife or something. It's been so long.
Yeah. I mean, like, just from a character design, like, the in-fight character design for Luke is really cool. I mean, even his portrait has, like, some sort of Lawrence of Arabia type of stuff going on here that looks really cool as well.
Pre-promotion, his battle sprite's pretty cringe-worthy. He, like, does, like, this weird, like, shield thing and, like, slashes down.
Yeah.
Post-promotion, he, like, flies up in the air and, like, dive bombs and it's kind of cool. But pre-promotion, it's still ugly. His weapon's like a tier behind what you can buy in the shop, so you gotta go buy him the right sword, and I put him at a D tier.
Yeah, I agree.
Above me, mate, and above Janet, but below Elric.
Gareth, how do you feel about
that? I've got nothing that I can sort of argue. Like, I thought the thing that always upsets me with Shining Force games, and I'm yet to play Shining Force Gaiden because there's more bird people in Shining Force Gaiden, they're just disappointing.
They really are.
Like, they look so awesome, and someone has clearly gone to a lot of design effort to make these characters look so good. And, like, Shining Force 1, Balbury and Amon, interesting story in how you meet them. Terrible characters that get outclassed so quickly.
Agreed. And I'll say that
you'd probably keep Yogurt over Balbury and Amon. Just
Luke,
because you're blind to the idea that he may finally promote to something good, like Kiwi.
Oh dear.
Story-wise, Luke does have some interest in terms of he's a messenger for Astral, so he already knows Bowie and has heard about him when you meet him. And he's obviously like a high-ranking member, in the court of the Beto of the bird people. Like, he does stuff for him. He's popular there, but past that, he's kind of useless.
Yeah. Agreed. Alright, moving swiftly on then. May. How do we feel about May? I like the character design. She maybe has one of the best character designs in the game. She's a solid centaur character that has like ranged attacks that are decent. I I think she belongs in a B tier here.
I'd say she's like a high C, maybe. Like, I like May and I like the character, and I think there's a lot of stuff that's interesting about her. And she's probably one of the better bow carrying characters in the game.
Yeah.
But she sort of.
I feel that she falls off hard, like towards the end of the game.
You're definitely using her like you get her just after you get Peter, before you get Geralt. So you're forced to use her, and when you start getting like the triple distance, so like the 3 square away bows, you suddenly feel like she's quite good. But then her power stats sort of, mate, this is going from memory. I always felt like there's a point and you're like, oh my god, May's killing everything, and then it's like she's hitting things, but they're not dying. But they're no longer dying.
Yeah.
So you're both wrong. She's A tier.
Oh wow.
Explain.
Here's the leg I'm going to stand on for that. I think she's the only archer worth using.
Yeah, I'll agree with that.
She has the highest attack of all the archers, actually. She has higher attack than Rode, Elric, and Janet, even as brass gunners, whatever. She still has the highest attack. I'm going to argue also that as an archer's defense is not something they should be that worried about. If they're in the back shooting ahead, you have Yahara, you have Bowie, you have Geralt, you have other characters in front taking the damage, taking the hits for them.
Yeah. I always remember is it the fight when you're going up to Volcanon? Yep. And you kind of always have to have her near the front because of the ranges of the archers and the mages that you're fighting against. And that's always the fight I remember. And I think it's also, is it the first fight when you start getting, I know it's not called the Brave Bow, it's just that I've played so much Fire Emblem, when you start getting the bow that's got three spaces for attack. You don't
get, it's the Robin arrow, and you get that after you beat the Taurus. When you come back to Hassan, there's a new there's Rick, and then there's a new merchant there. So like weapons that can only be equipped to promoted characters. And
Hassan's the one with the it's got like the boat wheel. Yeah, it's got the captain wheel as a monument. Yeah.
I'm gonna say she's A tier because if you're gonna use any archer, she's the one to use. She has good movement as a centaur. Her movement the way it calculates her movement with land effect is better than Elric or Janet, and much better than Rode. Rode has very low agility. He's very slow. The battle after you get Rode, you're moving through trees and terrain which he cannot move through effectively. He can move like 3 spaces at a time, so he falls behind. May is the only one worth using, and she does a very good job at it.
I would argue that in the late game, though, you're using spell users instead of archers.
I mean, if you want to argue spell users are better than archers, I'm not going to say I necessarily disagree with that. However,
she's the best archer, is what you're saying.
I'm also going to say throughout the game, there aren't enough good spell users to replace May, because your spell users that come in are, if you didn't pick Tyron, are Taya and Chaz. And you don't get them, you get Taya the last third of the game, roughly, maybe, and Chaz at the very end. So it's not like you're able to just like pull out a spellcaster.
That's what I'm saying though, is like towards the end of the game, I feel like the spellcasters are more effective than May.
But you said you've never used Chaz on your playthroughs, but I bet you played through the whole game with May.
I have. But
I can't argue that.
Yeah, okay. You sort of like debating me into a corner here, but that's my own fault.
I want to say she's a B tier. I'm not going to necessarily disagree with you.
I'd give you high B. I'd meet you in the middle with high B.
I think at the top of the B tier would be fair for me.
I'll take that. If I'm also outvoted, I would still argue low A, but I'll take high B. That's fair.
I think she goes there. In
like, if it was after Kazan, I can be persuaded, but I definitely feel like with me saying like very high C into a B, and you're saying an A, if that's like the middle ground, isn't it? High B.
Yeah.
You know what?
Yeah.
When we were coming into this, I knew we were going to argue over May. I feel like she's quite a divisive character in this game.
I think she is kind of a fan favorite. I just think it's maybe my experiences with her have definitely clouded my opinions.
Okay.
She has a cool backstory also. Only centaur in town, kind of ignored by the rest. You walk up and talk to her, and she just happens to join you and goes and fights Zeon, you know?
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. She has a terrible backstory. Cool
Yeah.
portrait, cool character, terrible backstory.
Basically, she's not too dissimilar to the first female centaur you get in Shining Force 1 in the fact it's like,
Nope.
hi, I'm a female centaur. I'm here for
Literally, they both have hair and shoot. Oh, no, the May, and I think they're both named May too, right?
The spelling's different.
Yeah, it's MAE for the one in Shining Force 1, and she's a knight, if I recall.
I couldn't remember that much.
No, because is it Ken is the name of the first knight you get?
But May's like the second knight you get, or something like that.
She's the daughter of the guy. Is it Lord Jared, who's the knight who knocks you out at the beginning?
Yeah.
But it's his daughter who joins against his wishes.
But yeah, I'll compromise. We'll say she's a high B.
Thank you. Do we need to say anything about our next contestant?
Part God.
Should we just put him in S and be done with it? Like,
I mean F, right? You misspoke. No, definitely high S tier
S.
character.
Yeah.
Possibly Karna.
I actually think he's the best character in the game.
I would agree with that.
No arguments here.
Yeah.
He definitely has a glow up as well in promotion.
Yeah,
he's a promoted character.
I mean, the only thing I could say bad about him is that his perm on top of his head looks like a poo. I mean, that's literally the only bad thing about him.
When I was a little kid, I used to giggle about that.
Yeah. I know that the people watching might want us to talk more about Peter, rather than just say S tier. He has a poo head. Okay, let's move on.
Okay, Peter. Attack's ridiculous.
Yep.
Movement's ridiculous.
Yep.
Don't have to pay for revive.
Nope.
He has a large amount of narrative devoted to him.
Yep.
He is basically the son of God.
The developers clearly wanted you to use him. There's no reason not to unless you're trying to handicap yourself. Like, no drawbacks, doesn't need anything. I mean, if it doesn't cost any money to equip, there's literally nothing wrong with this character.
Yeah.
Other than he kind of makes the game too easy, almost.
Yeah, pretty much. No downsides.
Can't miss him either.
Yeah.
True.
All
right, guys. Randolph, how do we feel about him? I feel ambivalent. I'm just sort of like, okay, he's a dwarf, and he's here too.
Yeah, he's it's almost he's all okay. Hear me out. He's even less remarkable than Eric in the sense of he's middle of the Creed. He's not even the worst Creed character. He's not the best. He's not even the worst. He's like third, out of them. He's not bad at anything, but he's not great at anything, which makes him, where I've been throwing all the characters who aren't bad but not great. They go in B tier, perfectly serviceable if you get him. But there's really not a lot of point to doing it.
I kind of have a theory about that. I'm wondering if he's like the 29th character that they were designing, and we're so close to 30, we just need one more character. Okay, can we just poop out another character, please? The art department.
Let's just throw him in there. All right, cool. He's old dwarf. Okay, there.
Well, literally, look at it. Look at his portrait next to Yahara's portrait. Just look at it. Just look at it.
Old Yahara.
Old Yahara.
Yeah,
and that's
he's been on holiday.
It's like Eric. It's like Eric. Basically, Chester lost the sweatband. The John McEnroe era's over, and he combs his hair back because he's watched mafia movies.
Done.
Yep.
You know what I mean? We've already said the aged counterparts of the base thing. The only thing is does that make Creed aged Bowie? Who knows?
I actually kind of think that the character design for Randolph is quite similar to the main character from Gears of War, with the do-rag and
Marcus Phoenix.
Marcus Phoenix, that's it. Yeah.
But B tier, no argument there.
Yeah.
Dude,
No.
where do we put him? Below Yahara, obviously.
I would put him there. That's fine.
Yeah.
Under Lemon, over Chaz.
Okay.
Chaz B tier.
Yeah.
Chaz has got sort of back from holding up the rest of the B tier.
All right. So next,
Rick.
Rick.
So
yes. I was
Rick,
actually like, is it Elric? Is it? No, it's Rick.
Do you want to start with Rick?
Is Rick at the bottom of the 3 C tier paladins?
No, I would not say that. I would put Rick.
No.
I think he's like better than Chester.
I think Rick's actually the best centaur in the game.
Above May.
Okay, other than May.
Yeah. Okay.
He's the best knight character in the game.
So are we sticking him at the top of C or somewhere like
I think
Yahara?
he's better than Jaro. Actually, I think so. Rick has the highest defense of any of the knights, and he technically has the lowest attack, but it's not that much lower than like the range of attack for them at the end of the game will be like 7 points. So, but his defense like 20 points higher than the next highest knight, so he can tank hits.
Yeah.
We
used Rick in Shining Tactics, didn't we? Because we noticed that his butt was big.
I changed Rick a little bit. I changed up Rick a little bit in War of the Gods, so be on the lookout for that. He's a little different now.
Okay. No, I like him as a character. I like the fresh face sort of look when he joins as well. Like he doesn't have the most in-depth character development because obviously he just sort of like he's
a roaming knight, isn't he?
Yeah. Rick, I usually bring him to my end game because there's nothing. He's better than Chester objectively, I think. And there's nothing wrong with him. So I put him in. I put him right after Jaro in the B tier category. And yeah, right after Jaro.
I could see
it.
Yeah. All right. I think that's fair. Mr. Road. I like the character design of Mr. Road. Is it Mr. Road or Dr. Road? I forget.
I think it's Mr. Road, but they all do end up calling him Road, just Road, I think.
Yeah. I like his character. I like him
as a place in the plot.
You like a moody old inventor.
As a usable character, he's just sort of like a wet fart, if anything. To be honest.
I don't like brass gunners really.
No. The design is so cool, and it's such a letdown.
Concept, but yeah, you're like I would put him in a C tier because he's better than Elric and Janet by a long shot.
Yeah,
but he has low agility. He has a movement of 5. The first battle after you get him, terrain-wise, does not suit him at all either.
It doesn't.
So, and like it's like the first 2. So like you're going through. He's like the first 2 battles you get him. He's kind of dragging behind.
Yeah.
So I would put him at a C tier. I would put him below Chester, but above Eric.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like better than Eric, but worse than Chester.
Like for some reason I use Road a lot. I think it's mainly just because I just liked the notion of a guy builds his own tank. He's like he A-teams it. Yeah. And then later on the other characters are like like Janet and Elric are like, I can also have a cool tank, and you just know that it's like Road.
I can attach a cannon to a go-kart and drive it around the battlefield.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. And it just reminds me, is it Kajiki or whatever it's called from Shining Force 1, who's also the other crazy inventor who makes the steam-powered Rhino?
I don't remember that. But hey,
yeah,
I don't remember anything.
I again, better than Eric, worse than Chester. I brought him to the end game a couple times, just like trying stuff, but he's nothing to write home about.
No, I agree. Gareth?
I have no argument. I nodded along to that the whole time.
Sorry, I wasn't looking.
Don't worry.
All right, Sarah, how do you feel about the jilted lover?
Someone else can start with that one, but I like Sarah.
I do.
Yeah.
You probably take her from beginning to the end.
Definitely. Yeah. With my playstyle, definitely.
You probably, the first time you get the Master Monk class is when you promote her to Master Monk.
Yep. Yeah, she was.
More than serviceable. I think, she has a place in the plot line. I was actually thinking about this after one of the questions that we were asked about if you were to make a Shining Force 2 film, and I always wonder how Sarah's role would be treated in that, because is she really a jilted lover, or...
I don't know, because Bowie obviously never self-reflects, so you don't get any opinions from him, so you don't know how he feels about Sarah. You just know how she feels about him.
He'd smooch anyone that smooches him, because that's how his conversations are as well. He sort of nods to anyone who talks to him.
That's kind of how I feel in this video, to be honest. Considering I don't have a lot to offer.
I'd say she's for me, she's probably like a lower B tier character, because you will use her through. It's my issue with Sarah.
I would give her 8. I think Woodhouse is with me. I'd give her A tier.
I think she's an A tier character.
Yeah.
I'm so happy you guys argued me into this. I was sort of like, I'll be super mega conservative.
So here's what I'll say. I think Sarah, if Karna was not in the game, Sarah would have a much better spot. She's, a primary healer. In some ways, she's a better healer than Praja, just in the sense that she gets the heal spell a lot earlier on, and for one character healing, that's much better. As a Vicar, Sarah is not good. If you could only promote her to Vicar, I would say she's very, very low B tier, maybe C tier. But as a Master Monk, perfect, very good, better Master Monk than Sheila, which easily puts her in the A category.
Yeah. I mean, I think I always used Fraser as my Vicar class.
Same.
I think it went all the female characters that can monk, you monk.
That class is just broken in my opinion.
I mean, it is. But yeah, she's almost every playthrough. Most people are going to take her from beginning to end, even as Vicar. They're going to, just because she's your only healer for 75% of the game easily, if not maybe a little bit less than that, but still a good chunk of the game. If you don't pick Karna, so I would say A tier.
Same. Yeah. I'd put her in between Bowie and Kazan.
Yeah. Okay. I'm on board with that.
Yeah. Gareth.
Yep.
All right.
Like I said, I'll happily be argued upon this. Sheila, eh?
Sheila's
kind of a weird spot, I think.
I know there's going to be...
Isn't she a fan favorite, though? Just because she's naked for, half a second.
Yeah.
In the schoolboy fantasy of, we get to see her with nothing on.
Swimming around the back of the pond behind the dojo.
Oh, my gosh. The 3 pixels of Nudity, yeah.
Sheila, I'll say this. I didn't find her till probably my 3rd or 4th playthrough, I think. This is back in 1996 or 1997, so I was 6 and 7 at the time, so I wasn't looking up too many online guides.
Yeah. I think, Gareth, didn't you tell me about her?
Yep.
And didn't you go sort of hey, watch this? And then you get to see her wee!
Yeah. The thing that I find funny about Sheila is she's such a 90s trope for strong feminism. I'm a crazy, wild, independent woman, and I can be nude in front of a bunch of people, and I'm not bothered about it. And I'm going to bunk off from the dojo because I'm already the best in the dojo. She's a fun character.
Yeah.
I think the first time I played through it, I think she was maybe my first monk character. Because I don't think I had I didn't know about the Vigor Ball, and I'd already promoted Sarah to the Vicar class. So, big hats all around. I'd say she was probably an A tier character because she was very aggressive.
I think that's a bit high.
I would put her high B tier. She's the worst master monk.
Yeah.
She's the first one you get though when you play.
I see what you're aiming at there. Yeah,
she's probably the first time you come across that class, unless you know to hold on to the Vigor Ball.
See, but if you find the Vigor Ball and you pick Karna, you already have the Vigor Ball by the time you get Karna. So
yeah.
A lot of people's if they got the Vigor Ball, a lot of people's first master monk was by Karna, and if you've been using Karna most of the game, Sheila's in her shadow a lot.
Yeah.
And actually, I would argue, I think Fragia is more usable than Sheila in some ways, in that Sheila is not a fantastic... She's a healer, but she's not a great healer.
No.
I used her for... I think I used her initially as a front line. For because is it attack or boost that she's got?
It's boost.
She's got boost.
And when you're boosting, you're like leveling up faster than everyone else in the game. So I can see why you might put her in the front line, because she's probably going to be like 2 or 3 levels above everyone else.
Yeah.
But I would put her below Fragia, honestly, in the B tier.
For my playstyle, definitely. But I mean...
So where we're going between Fragia and Jaro?
She's still a healer, and in my opinion, like, all the healers are good in this game.
And Master Monk's a fantastic class. She's just the worst Master Monk.
Oh, no, I would agree with that.
Yeah. She's still better than 90% of the other characters.
Yeah, agreed. All right, so I'm just going to put this here and see what happens.
S for Screech class, right?
That's right, that's how this works.
I mean, he's so easy to unlock. He has so much narrative to the game. He comes in with such great attack abilities, high defense.
I'm eating this up, Gareth. Come on, keep going.
He may as well have stayed an egg. John, I need you to add 3 tiers below D, and we just stick him in there.
Oh dear.
He may as well have stayed an egg.
There's nothing about him. And the only thing I'll say, his portrait is cool, and the idea behind, you go through the work of getting him, and you think, man, I'm going to get this cool character. It's like Sheila. It's going to be something fantastic. And he's nothing. Nothing worth it.
I think there are some NPCs in the game I'd rather have than Screech.
Yeah.
The only here, I'll give you a great thing about Screech. He comes with a great sword equipped, and you can sell it for some extra gold. There you go.
He's a great kid. You can mug him.
Yeah.
Looking at Screech makes me want us to do a tier list of my mod after y'all beat it.
Ooh. Okay.
Oh, so we're stepping him up.
Maybe. Just throwing it out there.
I always have this question, and it's something I want to put to you, Alex. So you meet Screech, and he's a freshly laid egg, basically.
Yep.
And then, not much further into the game, he turns up as a fully grown adult with weapons. How long is this game supposed to be?
Maybe he's So in my mod, and this one that you're playing, the characters reference the timeline somewhat occasionally.
Right.
And I have the whole game from you being at Newgrounds to fighting Xenon is about a year. So even between then, it's a couple months between Beto and Tristan. So he's not really growing up in that time, unless Birdman grew up really fast or something. I don't know.
Is he on? Has Volcanon got the KFC growth feed going on? Is he plumping up them breasts? Is he using some kind of stimulant?
It doesn't make any sense.
I've got to say, by the way, Alex, some of the self-referential material from some of the guards has been very good. I've enjoyed that a lot.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. The guard who has to guard the room that has nothing in it is chef's kiss. That's some good stuff there.
Y'all seem to enjoy Astral talking about not being wise to anger a wizard. Wasn't that one of the things y'all? He's fighting Gollum, and he's like, it's not why. I don't know. I was doing a Gandalf reference. Y'all seem to get a kick out of it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Sorry, yeah.
It's all right. I hope y'all are enjoying it so far. I hope it.
Yeah.
It's up to your standard.
No, we are, yeah.
I
I
mean,
mean, other people
probably-
are too. So,
Yeah,
like,
I mean, you've met me and John, so it's clearly above our standard, as you probably tell. So,
All
You're-
right,
a man of culture.
yeah,
we on to Slade now.
yeah. Let's get away from the trash. Let's
Ninja Slade.
Ninja Slade. In my opinion, the coolest character in the game.
I always
Unfortunately,
thought the original Slade is like such a nerd, but then I remember when you sort of get, is it Katan and Rajion and all like the cool
Yep.
ninja spells, and I was like, those first however many levels of ninja being kind of like, meh. When he started getting magic points, I started getting kind of excited, and then some of those spells are just silly.
Well, I
can
remember the first time I got Slade, or the first time I promoted Slade. It was really interesting because I did like a couple levels and like, man, he's gaining MP, and like that was really interesting to me as a kid. Like, what's happening? You know, what's going on here? Slade's a fantastic character. The number one thing I'll knock him on is that when he's a thief, you have to kind of babysit him a little bit to get him going. But honestly, even as a thief, once you get a couple levels with him, his attack is even as a thief before he's a ninja is really good. After a couple levels, and you give him the power ring, you help him out a little bit there.
he certainly fulfills the glass cannon sort of mold.
Exactly.
And I think it's fun I think he's a fun character to use. He's got an interesting
Definitely.
design, interesting look.
If I had to describe Slade, he would be that guy who doesn't look at explosions.
Yeah.
He's that cool guy. So
The guy walking away from the explosion, you mean?
yeah, he's
Slow
the Mark Wahlberg wearing a hat.
So what are we thinking here?
I think he goes in between Bowie and Geralt in A.
I'll give you that. I will. Yeah. I think I might put him a bit lower.
The only reason I say that is, and we haven't mentioned it yet, is that he has the one-hit kill ability.
Yeah.
He does not have that ability. He's the only character who equipped the sword that gets that ability to be pedantic about it.
Okay, all right, fair.
But I will also say that's not towards the end of the game, and I guarantee you, not many people found out about the Gisarm without a guide back in the 90s.
Yeah.
All right, you keep using that against me, and I wish I hadn't said it.
I'm just saying.
No,
That's all I'm saying.
you are saying, and you're correct, and I'm mad at myself.
Or what am I using against you? I just want to be clear what smart thing I'm doing.
The fact that you're saying that the first playthrough thing, like I keep forgetting that we're using that as a criteria for.
I remember like when I was like even like not first five playthroughs, but the first playthrough I played through the game at like 5. I did not find the Dwarven Merchant at all. Like my character, like he had a great sword at the end. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
I didn't either.
I sold on my mithril. Like I thought it was like, oh, this is like I sell and get money with. Great, like whatever.
I will tell you a little funny story. I discovered the Dwarf Merchant on my first playthrough completely by absolute accident.
That's impressive.
I basically turned to another kid who I knew played it, and he was the child who lent me Shining Force 1. And he went, "There's what?" I went, "Oh yeah, there's a guy," and he starts telling you that he can use the mithril that you found. And he's like, "How did you get there?" And I was like, "I kind of just wandered around some bushes for a bit, and he was there." And he was like, "What?" And he literally thought I'd made it up.
So a little bit of context for people who've played this game when it didn't come first out, like the people who've played it further on. We didn't have the internet. We didn't have an internet, so
Not really.
so there was no guides, there was no nothing really. I mean, there might have been some like guide in a newspaper or a magazine or something, but I never got it. Yeah. So
I literally.
Go ahead.
Sorry. After you, Alex.
Oh, I was gonna say, even if you find the Dwarven Merchant, there's only like a 6% chance that you're gonna get the Gisarm anyway.
Yeah.
So I usually most playthroughs I played first couple times, like I threw him the critical sword even after I found the Dwarven. I was like, okay, well, that's pretty good with him. As an aside, by the way, for War of the Gods, I overhauled how the Dwarven Merchant works. It should be a lot less frustrating for y'all.
You get a choice, do we?
What?
We get a choice, do we?
That's spoiler territory. Don't do that. Let's save that.
I'm trying to avoid it. I just like hyping y'all up by telling you little bits.
No. Let's save it, Gareth. We'll get there. We'll figure it out.
You will like it.
Okay.
But I would say I'll agree with that. I actually think Bowie. Well, no, Slade's. That's a good spot for Slade. I forgot about his spells. I kind of don't think about that, but he can do just about anything.
Yeah, I just think he is the coolest character in the game as well. And
by far, other than Geralt, yeah.
All right. All right. I'm not as big on the werewolf as you guys are, but whatever. I'll let that slide.
How do you feel about our first character who's turned into stone?
Yes.
Like, you
Taya.
just get her at such a terrible time, and she's literally just a narrative for you to speak to a different god.
No, Taya, yeah, I agree. She's not. I mean, she's not
awful.
Yeah, she's not gonna drag your team. She's certainly not like Screech tier, but I would say she's a little bit below Gaian.
Yeah.
So you're saying she's the worst spellcaster?
Yeah, I do think she's the worst spellcaster. Yes.
Below Gaian or below Chester?
I think she's worse than Gaian. I'm gonna say she's better than Chester.
Yeah,
because I think the first time I did a playthrough, for some reason I wanted her to be like Tau from Shining Force 1. And I tried her for a few fights, and it was just like, when are you going to get good? Without I want to put this much time into you, but get this much return, and that's not how it. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. I'm talking first playthrough kid mentality.
Well, and I was going to say, your first playthrough, she's probably the only sorcerer you're getting.
Yeah.
Because if you don't find a secret book or know about that, so she has spells that none of your other characters have, which seems really interesting. But if you promote Kazan to a sorcerer, he's got Dow 1, Dow 2, and Apollo by the time you get Taya, who only knows Dow 1.
Yeah, I think the other issue is like when you like put time into Taya to get the other spells, and you don't understand that, like, for example, Atlas scales on multiple attacks opposed to a single unit.
All the summon spells do,
yeah. So they all have like. It took me a few attempts. Like, I remember going like, "Oh, this spell like totally wipes this guy out," and then I'm like, "I can't wait to wipe out these 4 archers or whatever," and you just like. This was hot trash.
Her defense is well too, so she's getting one. I mean, I understand wizards aren't totally super strong, but she's getting one shot like every time when you get her 2. So she's not surviving a fight to the end to get the XP she needs to level up. You can make her work if you really want to. You can make her work as a character, but I would say below Gaian, better than Chester, C tier.
Yeah. Just doesn't have the efficiency rating of other characters.
Yeah, and I mean she's got she's a spellcaster and magic is good, so she's a little bit better than Chester, Eric, Claude, but not good.
Okay, all right. I was gonna make a point about she's worse than Randolph, but yeah, she gets one shot way too easily. Yeah.
All right, Tyron.
Tyron, how do we feel about?
Is he just a Creed Mansion B tier?
I would say Tyron's Creed Mansion B tier. I would say
he's the best one though, right?
A tier.
Apart from Karna, sorry.
Apart from Karna, I would say he's A tier because he's better than Kazan objectively. You're probably going to use Kazan more, but Tyron's better.
Yeah, I can see that.
Does that follow?
Yeah. I was waiting for somebody to say something, but yeah, I think that's pretty succinct. I think he. What do we, Gareth? I mean,
I'm gonna say better than Kazan.
No, I can get behind that. I think my only argument would be is that you are most likely to use Kazan over Tyron, as a beginner.
Yep.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. But
Also, he kind of looks like a bad guy.
that's
He
the
does.
eyes though. He's got that like sort of like eagle
Lizard
eye
eye.
sort of thing going on, doesn't he? So
Yeah.
But I think he's a really cool character. So I definitely.
I
agree with
mean, the Warlock alteration was a very interesting mechanic in a specific mod that we may or may not played.
What
Yes.
mod is that?
Something like Shining Tactics.
that. Yeah,
It's okay.
Sounds like it wasn't very good.
Eh,
yeah, it's
know.
okay.
we spent like 54 hours playing it. It was fine.
Yeah, we did. So finally, the robot. How do we feel about the robot, Zinc?
I really like him as a like the notion of him characteristically.
Yeah.
Like art style's cool.
Yes.
His narrative's cool.
Yes.
The thing that always upsets me with Zinc is, unlike Adam, where they clearly like specify his purpose and why he's there, Zinc, they just give you like that little taster, and they never give you like the satisfaction of the meal. You know what I mean? It's like that little juicy, like tantalizing appetizer.
But they're not going to tell you.
Yeah.
I
But then the problems with Zinc when you play him mechanically, like the laser beam when it randomly happens,
It's cool.
is amazing.
I was just going to say, I just want that laser beam to be his attack 100% of the time. But
60% of the time, it works 100% of the time.
yeah,
Same movement as Claude, slightly better agility. I think he's the best C tier character.
Yeah, I can see that.
really,
I think I will
Okay.
admit I will use Zinc in every team.
me too, because
because-
he's so cool.
Yeah, but I also have reached the point in my life where it's like, I'm aware that drinking is bad for me, but I enjoy it.
Well, also, Shining Force 2 isn't a hard game, so really you can use whoever you want. I mean, if you have a team with Screech, Kiwi, and Janet, it might be a hard game actually. But you can really, if you were to use a whole all the B tier characters, you're gonna get through the game pretty easily.
Yeah.
Not any huge issues. The only reason I give Zinc C tier is I think for him to be really usable, you have to give him the running ring. You have to give him like a running pimento.
Am I right in saying he's got low health as well?
Let me double check that.
I seem to, I might be wrong, but I feel like he had quite low health for like a frontline character.
Oh, his health's okay. It's
I
it's
think he's
little-
kind of... Is he a little bit underleveled for the position of the game that you get him? Because he's kind of a narrative piece more than a game piece, you could argue.
Check. No, you get Claude at the same time as Zinc.
Yeah, I
And
remember that.
Zinc comes 2 levels higher than Claude.
Yeah, but Claude's a movable
Stupid.
police.
Optional.
Yeah, he's trash.
If you want to get rid of one character, get rid of Claude. No one will notice.
Yeah.
I mean, you've proved that with multiple mods, you were saying.
Yeah. I had to get rid of more characters this time, though, and it broke
Oh,
my
I didn't
heart.
mean to do that. So you think he's the top
think-
C
yeah.
level?
High C tier. High C tier.
As I joked, it's like, I know drinking is bad for me, but I enjoy it.
Yeah, I
I was gonna say, if you want to add a tier level to separate them more, we can break them up even more if you want. But I think you're good here.
I can be more or less happy with that list. I know that people aren't going to be happy with the list, and you
Well,
can feel free to put that in the comment, by the way.
Comments.
I can live with that list.
Do any of us have any strong objections to where any of the characters are?
If I'm being honest, from what we've commented, we could drop Claude to a D tier and probably not be dramatically unhappy with that. Just because his movements against him, like his attack and defense are amazing, but all of his like movement-based stats are poor.
Yeah,
he could be like the top end of the D rather than the bottom of the C. But it's such a...
aren't that different though.
I
I'm just
can't.
gonna put it. Whoa. I'm just gonna make the following statement. If you saw these two guys stood next to each other, which one of those two would you go, that's a dude? And which of the other one would we be like saying something derogatory about him?
I mean, we already have. So
I mean, multiple derogatory things. I mean, the only thing that I suppose you could do is if you're playing Claude and you're a fan of Discworld, is you could pretend that you've got detritus in your Shining Force team, and that you can basically attempt to make the Watch from Discworld in Shining Force if you're that way inclined.
Who would play Carrot?
A guy. Oh no, who's a tall? Because he's a dwarf that's tall, isn't he?
Anyway,
Lemon,
this is getting off.
Lemon would
topic.
be Carrot.
So,
But-
looking at it, I could come around. What Garrett said convinced me. If you put Claude at high D tier, I wouldn't argue with you too much. But the only thing I'm going to say is I think Claude and Zinc both hit A tier with a running ring.
Yeah. This is what I'm saying is
It's
like
a very
some of
conditional thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
the margins can be like so slight, and if you were willing to be like, oh, I understand that this item creates the relative. This is like why it's not playthrough 1 stuff, because in playthrough 1 you may not, unless you're very methodical and mechanically minded.
Yeah. The
You're
only
not
thing
going to be like
Not doing that, no.
the only thing I'm unhappy with this list is that Screech is too high.
That's what I was going to say. The only thing you might want to do is add another level for Screech, Kiwi, and Janet at the bottom, like F tier.
I mean, even then, you need to add an E tier for Janet and Kiwi, and then you need F tier for Screech.
So I should probably point out this at this point. Like I probably should point this out at the beginning, but anyway, I didn't make this list. It was already here on Tier Maker. So I'd just like to thank whoever made this. Apparently, you can follow them at Juvish on Twitter, which is a questionable name, but I'm not gonna pay it too much mind. So
comment.
no, thank you for making this list and making my life a little bit easier. But as far as the list goes, I'm pretty happy with it actually.
I think I'm good with it. You know, May on my list might be an A tier, but other than that, I think I'm okay with everything.
Yeah.
I mean,
if you're gonna put May in A tier, I'm gonna put Zinc like in B tier. Like, but apart from that, like I'm pretty happy.
I mean, realistically, what happens is maybe like the front and the back ends of each division, maybe like, you know, a relegation promotion battle, a playoff.
They're kind of interchangeable, aren't they?
A little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, I personally feel that like Kazan is like the end of the A tier. Like he definitely sits in that section quite well. Because he's
useless as a wizard. Like he's not that good. He's a great sorcerer, but he's not a great wizard.
Yeah.
So he fits there because Tyron's objectively better.
No, I mean,
basically what we're saying is magic good,
yes,
healing good,
yes,
punchy characters good, slow characters no good.
No good, no.
Well, and here's look at it too. On any typical playthrough, but I'm just playing for fun. None of the C or D tier characters ever end up on my team, except for maybe Zinc, maybe.
The other thing I'd like to say is that mascot characters are terrible. I mean, even in Shining Force 1, they're almost all terrible as well. So I think mascot characters should stay as mascots and not playable characters. But
yeah, like Peter, he's terrible.
Yeah.
Would you count him as a mascot?
No, Kiwi's definitely like the mascot character. I just say Peter because he's very prominent character.
Yeah, I could see your point.
I mean, all we've discovered between Shining Force 1 and 2 is there's a definite hate for bird boys and women.
Great. Bring that into the comments, why don't you, Gareth? Thank you for bringing that up at the end.
Thanks, Garrett.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
All right, so I think that's going to do it for our little foray into the tier maker and the tier list community there. If you have any sort of like objections or you think that we're completely perfect and right, please feel free to put that in the comments because you know we are. So I think that's it for tonight. So I'd just like to say thank you to Gareth, as usual.
You're welcome.
And to our special guest, Dark Claw, Alex.
Who
thank you very
actually
much.
did all of this.
Thank you for having me. I love talking to you guys. I love talking about this game. So
hey, you did all the heavy lifting today, it seemed like, so I'm more than happy that you came along and helped us out. So.
I mean, if it was him doing mods, making us question our choices in life, we wouldn't be doing this right now. So,
yes.
A lot of thanks goes to this guy.
Definitely. I had a great time, and I hope people who watch this do too. So that's going to do it for tonight, so thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Ciao.